All right, everybody can see the screen?
Yep.
Yes.
Hooray. Thank you, everybody, and good morning. Welcome to the Climate Quarterly Meeting. A couple caveats before we get started. One, I know this is a quarterly meeting, but we're running up against some sort of committee business that we're going to cover in this meeting. So there might be some inside baseball for some of you who aren't regulars, and I apologize about that. Two, um, I'm kind of tired. It's a Friday. All my brain is scrambled. So please give me some grace if I end up, sounding sort of like our president at times, please. I'll do my best. Uh, Thank you for coming, and let's launch into it. Sorry, wrong one. Where's my arrow? There we go. Okay, so here's our meeting agenda. I tweaked it from what got sent out yesterday, but I just want to welcome everybody, and let's stop share for a moment so that we can do introductions. Laura, why don't you go first, then me, and then Beth, and then I'll call the next row off, and we'll go that way on my screen.
All right. And I'm Laura Riley. I'm the Managing Director of Chicago Wilderness Alliance, and happy to see you all here today.
I'm Ted Hafner. I'm the initiative lead for the climate team. Thank you for coming. Beth? Muted.
Sorry. Sorry, guys. Hi, I'm Beth Beyer, Executive Director for the Technology Alliance and Lead for Education for Climate Action.
Okay, and then Lake, Adam, and Bill, please.
Hi, I'm Lake Schulte. I'm the program assistant for Chicago Wilderness, and this is Dog the dog. He just needed to be in my lap right now, so yeah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Adam Flichter. I'm the planning director for Friends of the Chicago River.
Hi, I'm Bill Miller. I'm a professor emeritus at Northwestern University and one of the folks working on the climate action for people and nature. Science lead.
Maria, Tarek, and then Jim.
Hi, everyone. I'm Maria Sadowski. I'm a communications consultant, and Chicago Wilderness is one of my clients.
Hello, everyone. I'm Tarek Shahzada. I'm on the government relations team for the Nature Conservancy's Illinois chapter, and I work on statewide and Chicago-specific policy.
I'm Jim Bland. I'm head of EPS Inc., and I've been busy trying to get the volunteer lake monitoring program back up and functional.
Jeremy and Pat, and then we have some other folks on that I can't see, so it'll be a free-for-all after that.
Good morning, everyone. Jeremy Strickland, Director of Outreach and Community Engagement with the Illinois Department of Natural Resources. I serve on our Climate Action Plan and Implementation team, and I work closely with Ted and Beth in their climate education initiatives.
Good morning, everybody. Pat Thomas with the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago, and I am a public affairs specialist and happy to be with you today. Thank you.
So I think the only folks we still have are Laura, Rachel, and Anya.
Hi, everybody. Laura Dirks, former Director of Nature, Culture, and Human Health Network, which is sort of on hiatus for a bit, but right now I'm working on the project that Northwestern is doing with the city on the Heat Vulnerability Index, and doing community engagement, a launch of a community engagement process.
Hi, everybody. I'm Rachel Novak, and I'm the Director of Sustainability at the Morton Arboretum.
Hi, I'm Anya Kranenberg, and I'm here for the summer with the CWA, working as an intern under Laura and Maria.
Excellent. Hi, Nicole, who is joining. Hi, Nicole. We're doing quick introductions, and you are the last one. You want to introduce yourself, Nicole?
Oh, hi. Sorry, I didn't. I heard last one as I was coming in. I'm
Oh,
Nicole Machuca.
sorry.
That's okay. Nicole Machuca, environmental social scientist with the Field Museum, Keller Science Action Center, and part of the CAPN team, one of the CAPN teams.
Awesome. I think that's everybody. In case it's not, just if I forgot anybody, please step up. Okay, good. I'll go back to my screen here and what we are going to do today. So we've done the introductions. I have a couple critical updates. That's where we're going to talk about some of the inside baseball, but they're good updates. The real inside baseball will be the funding selection options. And then we'll talk about some other partner updates if there's time, and talk about an initiative co-lead. And so that's sort of the schedule today. For the CAPN update, there are a couple big things to talk about. I think some of you have heard this. I'm not sure everyone has heard this, but Kristen Voorhees with the Field Museum, who was the project manager for the CAPN project, is unfortunately no longer with the Field Museum. I don't know if you know, and I want to respect privacy, but she had an injury in December of last year, and she's still recovering from that injury. And she felt she had to step away just to focus on herself. So that has put us in a little bit of a pickle because we've lost our excellent project manager for this project. But we're still moving forward, and that will explain this slide. Before Kristen left, like literally just before, we were in the process of signing a contract with Zeva Gandhi and her firm Collaborative Connections to help us with organizing, aligning, and outreach for this work, and to help us look into and think about who might be the co-authors for this work. So this slide is indicative that the process is moving forward. I'm not going to read any names, but it is moving forward. And that's important because that'll come up in the funding streams conversation in a little bit. But suffice it to say, we're moving forward on identifying who we really want as a core team in pink, and then the level of involvement and support as the circles reach out, as we reach into communities to look for co-authors for that project. So it is moving forward. We miss Kristen very much, but we're doing the best we can in her absence now that we have lost her. Any questions there? I'm not going to go into scheduling. We sort of don't know it. We have one more meeting with Zeva before we can start our outreach, but we're sort of starting the outreach to some of these folks to ask them to be a participant as we speak. So that's the update there, and I will take questions.
Yeah, just sort of clarify, the pink is really the co-design team to sort of figure out, and then the core team's a little bigger than that. So
thank you, Bill. Any other clarification since I'm tired and scattered? Any questions? All right. So this will get into some of the pricing later, but this is basically the scope for Zeva's contract. We have accepted the first phase, which you'll see at $21,000. That will come in again later in the discussion, but I wanted to give everybody some context here for that conversation. This scope has been accepted, and that is part of the work that you just saw, right? Here is phase 2 and 3 broken down by phase cost, right? So phase 2, which we haven't paid for yet, is $30,000, and phase 3, which we certainly haven't paid for yet or even thought about, is another 19. This will be brought back later, so you don't need to remember these figures, but again, I wanted to present context for that discussion later. Any questions here? I think we can keep this pretty general. Laura, do you have anything to add to this? Or Bill, anybody that's been in these meetings that I missed? I would really appreciate the support.
Yeah, so I just wanted to kind of echo that even though Kristen left, SEVA's work is started, and I think that was what is going to be the catalyst to keep this, to identify all of the structure moving forward. And so we're not exactly leaderless, and we're not exactly stalled at this time, and that this work was started. And I think with all the partners here, we're excited about the opportunity to kind of carve out what a realistic next step looks like. So thanks, Ted, and you're doing great. Don't worry, you're not tired. You're firing on all cylinders.
Any questions on this slide? Okay. So then I want to focus on another funding opportunity, which is the NOAA grant. We submitted this grant in, gosh, I don't know, what was it, December of 2023, maybe February, I can't remember. The point is, we should have heard by now whether or not we were awarded this grant, and we have not. At the last meeting, Bill sort of offered a helpful assessment because he applied for a different tier of the same grant, and they haven't heard yet either. So we're not alone in this. We're all waiting, but we don't know. We're fairly confident because we did get accepted in the first round and punted to the second. We felt really strong about our application for the second round. We felt it was pretty tight, but we're in limbo because we don't know. And unfortunately, a lot of the CAP-N work and community work we're hoping to fund through this NOAA grant. So that's why this is relevant to the funding conversation we'll get into in a little bit later today. Laura and then Bill, please.
I did have a conversation yesterday with the Friends of the Forest Preserve, who also had not heard anything, but the update that they had received will be late August or September, which probably means September.
Okay. Bill.
Yeah, I would just add that the PI for our grant had reached out to NOAA and got the response. NOAA is in the process of administrating rigorous and merit-based proposal review, blah, blah, blah. So basically, they're just taking a lot longer than they thought. So I don't think no news is bad news or good news at this point. We just don't know.
Excellent. Any other questions or clarifications before I go to our next really cool update? So the climate ed team of Beth and Jeremy, who have been doing really good work with IDNR through Jeremy's connections and position there, we have worked on supporting their climate action plan, which they're in the process of rolling out. That too is slower than they had hoped it would be. But excuse me, they hope to really activate that this fall and later this year. But the big news here is they are going to have a tent at the Illinois State Fair in August. They are allowing CWA to have a nice banner. It will not be the image on the left of your screen, but it will be similar to that. That was a mock-up that they gave us to play with and hand back to them for their implementation of our text and photos. The banner is big. It's like 6 feet tall by 2.5 or 3 feet wide. And we'll have a text about how we partner with them and what some of those efforts look like. I can provide the text in the chat if there's a quiet time that I can dig into my emails, but it's 2 or 3 lines. It's partner allied work. It's, things like the climate action plan that we're supporting. It's other IDNR work that we're supporting, like prescribed burns, invasive removals, and things like that. So it's pretty general, but it's going to be a nice sort of billboard inside the IDNR tent. That leads me to what's on the right side of the screen, which is IDNR's sign up to man that tent. There, as you can see, are many open slots. I myself am considering taking my kids down there for a day or two, working the tent and letting them loose in the state fair for a shift or two. We'll see. But if this is of interest to anybody, I'd love a quick sort of show of hands, just so that we can take that information and who might be interested put it in an email to IDNR and suggest that we can help fill some of these shifts for them if there is interest. So if anybody's interested, please do, let's take 30 seconds, raise your hand through the Zoom machine, and I will write your name down and forward that to the IDNR for their consideration. We're not sure they're going to allow us to man the tent because of politics, and they're still trying to get their own folks to man their own tent. But we have offered this, and they have said, well, let's see how things shake out. So this is really just a prep for that opportunity if they need us. So 30 seconds, raise hands if interested. I'll write it down, and we'll move on. Beth is interested. Any other hands? Can you scroll through here? I don't see a whole lot. That's fine.
Can you repeat again what day that was, Ted?
Yeah, so sorry. So I gotta get rid of my stuff here. So the fair opens on the 8th of August, and it runs, I believe, for 2 weeks to the 18th. So these are the shifts. You can see that 8/8 is actually all filled. Friday the 9th, they have 2 openings, one on the 10th over the weekend. They have lots of openings on Veterans, Gold Star, and Family Day that Sunday. So that's sort of what's available. And again, I'd love to offer volunteers to help them staff this if they need it. So far, I wrote down Beth and Ted. This doesn't need to be now. You can think about it, right? Email me if you're interested and think logistically that you could or are interested in doing this. That's fine as well. Laura.
I'll work with you to look at that as it gets closer and see what the openings are. Okay.
So right now, I think I will pass along to Devin, who is at CDAC, but partnering with IDNR on this, that there are at least 2 of us and there may be more. So thanks for that. Any questions or comments here? All right, hearing none, I'll move on. Why is that not advancing? There we go. Okay, so the other update that I wanted to provide is that our very own Beth Byer on the Climate Ed team has been working in a different capacity in a fellowship to create a project. And I'm actually going to turn this over to her for a couple minutes to describe the Heat Chicago map that she came up with and app, excuse me, that she came up with. Beth, if you could give maybe a 3 to 5 minute high level on this, that would be great, because this will also come into consideration a little bit later on. Go ahead, Beth.
Okay, sure. So the Heat Chicago is actually capitalized because it's a Hope Education and Art Chicago app. And I started this because I was actually looking at, we were talking a lot about ArcGIS and the fact that it can be expensive for small nonprofits to use this kind of technology, but we want to keep that technology because it's the base of the CW Hub. But what about other nonprofits? What else could we use? And I found an opportunity to apply for a fellowship with U of I to learn about a couple of different open source technologies. And so I received the fellowship, and the goal of the fellowship was to actually create an app, which is my first app, which was really exciting. But I had fun building it in R, which is one of the programming languages, and Leaflet. And then this one that's currently live is in UMAP. And basically what I hope to do with the HEAT project is to look at art installations in the environment and then to try to figure out whether we could create some activities in these are different, like what they would call assets, these different points. I don't know if I can show stuff more later, but I can make this live. I'll go ahead and put the link in here in case you guys want to.
That would be great, Beth, because I was trying to do that while you were talking, and I can't get out because I'm in full screen. So if you put the link to your webpage and the app, it's really cool and it's fun to play around with. And we're going to take this and sort of see if the hub wants to integrate some of this, because I think it's a really interesting sort of community-based project that allows us to think differently about how we interact with green spaces in a communal way.
I'm trying to put it in. It's going back in my stuff, but not into the chat. That's weird. Okay, so I'll do it in just a minute. But basically, when you click on these, you'll be able to go into different. You'll see if you play with it. What we're talking about is maybe possibly doing some user testing with it, but I'm not going to jump ahead into some of that kind of stuff. So yeah, more to come.
Any comments or questions here on this fun little project and map? Awesome. Okay. On to the next. Now we really get into inside baseball, and I apologize. I hope you all have had your coffee or beverage of choice. So on the left top, you will see our income. We had late last year gotten an anonymous donation of $50,000. We have yet to spend that. Partly it's because of Kristen's absence. Partly it's because of capacity and scheduling. I know, like I said, this is a quarterly open meeting. Usually we do this in the committee meetings, but we've had to cancel a couple of those in recent times. And I was waiting until we could get sort of a mass together to make some of these decisions communally. So $50,000 for an anonymous donation. TNC Illinois had provided funds to get Kristen's position in the first part of SEVA's contract off the ground. That's how phase 1 has been covered. And then we have committee funds that go to every committee that are $1,000 that I'm just throwing into this as a lump. So that total that we have to spend right now is about $76,000. Right, and if we do the math to get rid of that $21,000 that has already been paid, we actually have $55,000 to work with. On the right side is sort of the outflows or anticipated outflows. We talked about the cap end. There's the $30,000 for phase 2, the 19 for phase 3. We have had a request as part of the Indigenous Summit that we are planning for January 2025 to set aside some funds for that to cover costs, to bring some of the Indigenous members who are going to participate into Illinois, because of course, a lot of them don't live here because there is no deeded land until recently. But we think we're going to need about $10,000 to cover the costs of that day for travel, food, and space. So I'd like to sort of dedicate that, if people are willing, as a for sure. And then I'd like to talk about the things in red. And then the only other thing that I'd like to dedicate for sure is a small $500 sum for membership in the Midwest Climate Collaborative, which is run out of Washington University in St. Louis and has a bigger region than the CWA region. I think that is an easy thing, but I wanted to make sure everybody was okay with that and on the same page. So as you see, we have a total of $94,500, and that far exceeds the $55,000 available to us. Let's talk about the projects in red. Okay, you have heard about the heat map. Beth just mentioned further user testing for that, which she thinks would take about $5,000. Okay. The other ed project is this cool project called Crochet Coral. And that project is basically knitting coral pieces for an exhibit in a museum. The first one, and Beth, I'd like to cover this, but I'd like you to step in if I make a mistake. But the first one was done about, what, 15 years ago through a partnership with the University of Illinois. And it was put on display where, I can't remember.
Okay, good. At the Cultural Center. And so we haven't really seen it in Chicago, but yes, there's support from U of I professors, and there are some really interesting instances where this was done in on driveways during COVID, during the pandemic. There are different ways that this would kind of incorporate more of a bodily kinesthetic aspect to the learning that would go on. And the workshops that were initially, I don't know if we can break this out into, part of this was if they actually want to have an exhibit, we would need to partner with the Nature Museum, for example. That was our target. They're interested, but we'd have to offer the people who created the exhibit a certain amount of funds, which we don't know yet what it is. But the point simply is that what we were thinking about with these funds is we could go to the Nature Museum and say, hey, we're willing to put in for part of this, but we have to actually reach out to IFF, Institute for Figuring, and then get the number. And so it could be less than this if Institute for Figuring wants to give it for less, or if Nature Museum comes in for half. And we could still have an exhibit that would come about 18 months. That's what Nature Museum said they needed as lead time. But the initial workshops or choral workshops for crocheting and so forth, those could happen more easily at the museum sooner in their sustainability center or in the field at, this is kind of interesting, but there's a bunch of people who are into knitting, and they said at different knitting places around Chicago. So it's kind of it's sort of an out there idea with how to connect with the climate in a different way. So, yeah.
So thank you for that. That was really helpful, Beth. The other thing that is sort of in limbo here is we've been working with the Notabar to try to figure this out, and if it's realistic. That has been stalled because of capacity issues on their part and some organizational issues on our part. I will say that if we remove this from the funding considerations, right, the $75,000 then dips to 55 and we balance out. Okay. So that means that we could do the phase 3 scope, I believe, for 30, the CAPN Indigenous Summit for a total of 40, and then the Ed Heat Map and the CAPN CWA Climate Goal Initiative workshops for another 15, which brings us to a balanced sum of 55, right? I think we could probably figure out the $500 from there. I'm not worried about that. It's a smaller sum. The other thing is we may get this donation again. I don't know. It's anonymous. None of us know where it came from. So we may get it again, but I don't want to depend on it. I would love some, and then this last thing that I'd like to keep for consideration is the CAPN CWA Goal Initiative workshops. We have done one so far to date with the Managing Healthy Landscapes team, but we have a number of other, we have 7 other teams that could use the same sort of workshop and format. So I'd love to get a poll, take a vote, have a discussion as to what we think, how we should spend these funds. Nicole, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess seeing this CAPN CWA goal workshop confuses me a little bit because we're, as Seva has tried to say in our meetings, like, we need to pull back on some action until we get our people on the co-design team together to make the decision about what CAPN is. So yeah, I didn't know about that meeting, so I'd love to see what came out of that meeting. And that didn't come up in any of our CAPN meetings before. So that's just my thought on that line, is like, hey, we can wait on that because I'm probably going out with my internet. I apologize.
We can, but also, and I don't, this doesn't necessarily need to go to the initiative workshops in my mind, but I'd love to set a buffer aside for some of those workshops that we anticipate having with the public. So it could either go to the goal teams as a quick, easy lift, or it could go to Seva's workshops as part of that.
So, sorry, just to confirm, you're thinking this is a buffer if we don't get the NOAA?
Kind of.
Then that money would need, in my opinion, would need to go to paying the community partners that don't have the funding capacity like we do to contribute to CAPN, like to be part of CAPN at the co-design level. That's just my opinion. Just my other thought and the other things is I like to think of alignment and strategy. So it'd be helpful for me to see like what are we saying this initiative is doing, this climate team is doing for me that would help me be like, oh yeah, the crochet coral exhibit totally is in alignment with what we're saying this group is doing. So I don't have an opinion because I don't recall what those initiative goals are. So that's it.
Fair enough. Laura?
Yeah, I wanted to, well, so sort of addressing that. So the CAPN goal initiative workshops, as Ted mentioned, those are part of the next steps, and it was part of the work that Kristen was doing, and it did include stipends for participation. If I'm wrong, is that not that was a portion of that? Was there was a very specific amount that was dedicated for that. And to the other is, I like where you were going with this, Ted, of balancing it out with some of the bigger picture initiative work, and then we can table the other as we move through the process with SEVA. And I think that prioritizing that second phase 2 and the phase 3 in the scope is also really valuable, particularly given capacity. So.
I think my response to you, Laura, is let's definitely, I would love to do the phase 2 scope, but I don't think we'll be through phase 2 anytime soon. So I'd love to table the phase 3 and remove that from the equation now and just park it.
Yeah.
So that we can balance.
I do agree with that.
Okay.
I do agree with.
Other questions or comments about this? Again, this is where my tiredness on a Friday, it makes sense up here to me, but I'm probably not doing a great job communicating this. Go ahead, Bill.
I guess I wasn't sure when you said minus phase 3, you also were pointing to the education, which has 3 on your list, but phase 3 scope is the one that's 19,000. So I'm not sure. Are you saying you want to fund the crochet coral and these? Because I would argue that perhaps that should all, if it's part of the CAPN, maybe that should also be on hold until after we sort of figured out the co-design team and where everything's going, and make sure, we're using all the funds. I mean, they both sound good, but there's a whole lot of other good things we could do as well. And I'm just, if we're going to do this, get the co-design team, get things pulled together, figure out who else all needs to be in and where we are, then, having some reserve for that if the NOAA doesn't go might be useful.
Do we have consensus on parking crochet coral for the moment?
I just want to say one thing on that point. We could actually still have a conversation with the Nature Museum and find out the cost of it, like table it, you know what I mean? And just like, because we were working just like, hey, let's put a number there. So I would second the tabling of the 3 section
awesome.
there. Yep.
And I think the heat map is one that, could be really good for visualization. So I think, having something like that sort of fits in with working with the community. I don't know if you've talked with the folks on that Terry is working with about the heat index for Chicago that includes mortality and all that. So you might want to, that's the one that Laura mentioned. So it's a group led by Dan Horton and a number at the med school. Really working on, better understanding the impact. So, I mean, that you might want to sort of connect with them. So, Terry Horton would be a good person to talk to, or Laura Dirks, to get started on that.
Can I just say, SEVA just, she just finished a short facilitation contract with the HVI project on the community governance. So the idea of co-design also is part of that project. And these all hands meetings that are happening every other week definitely is looking at the data points beyond just morbidity and mortality and the inaccurate reporting of heat-related illness and death in particular. So as well as trying to incorporate community assets that can help diffuse heat-related events. So that's the one thing I'm going to be working on over the next 6 weeks is, a community sort of rollout on just introducing the concept. But just in terms of data, what you're mentioning, Bill, they're definitely talking about nuances and getting input from community folks as well on what that data point should look like.
Thanks, Laura. I didn't realize, I saw you had dropped off. I didn't realize you were back on, so perfect timing.
Yeah, I just had to pop off for a few minutes, sorry.
No, that's okay.
I wonder if there's any links that you could share in the chat about that information, because I would like to incorporate that in there. And if we do end up doing a user testing, I hope to give small little thank yous out of those funds too for anyone who participates in our user testing.
So do we have consensus that the $5,000 for the heat map is a good idea? Or are we unsure at this point? I'm not seeing quite the head nods that I saw earlier.
Do you want just 2 thumbs up? Anybody? Or raise hands? It's easier.
Yep.
Let's see.
2, 3, 4. Sorry, I'm losing count. Can somebody help me count here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-ish out of like what, 17 or how many? 15?
Yeah.
So not.
Are there those that are opposed?
Consensus. Yeah. Any opposed? Let's raise hands.
Wait, it's my hand down. I don't know. If you, okay.
How many people need more information or time to think about this? 2, 3, 4. So I see 3 for sure. Maybe 4, 5. Okay. So it seems sort of 5 people don't know, 5 people are in support, and 5 people need more information. Go ahead, Jim.
I just need additional information.
Okay.
To understand.
Oh gosh, how is this happening? Okay. So Beth, let's work to provide a summary, the links to the heat maps so folks can play around. I think the idea with this is, especially since we parked crochet coral and we're balanced, I think the idea is to get this out fairly quickly to keep momentum going, because Beth has done a really tremendous amount of work on this, but feels that the testing is the next step and would love to sort of start that in the next 10 days, 2 weeks to organize that. Is this something, if we send out an email follow-up sort of later today or maybe over the weekend or Monday, that we can get an email consensus on? Would people be willing to do that?
Do people want more information now? Because we could hop into the PowerPoint and show people a little bit more if we want, or I don't want to take over the meeting.
Yeah, let me go through. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, just clarity around exactly what is the 5,000 for product. Like, I don't know if there's like a proposal for this 5,000. I think I'd be more comfortable reviewing that. And then I think the other area of hesitancy I have is just alignment with like the other groups of people working on mapping in the CW. So I know I'm not super in the know with our team here, but I know like Mark Johnston and named folks here might know, does a lot of mapping along with many other folks I'm sure that I don't work with. So just thinking about alignment with what's happening in the CW hub and stuff like that. It's just where my brain is going. So
to respond to that, Nicole, this app has been mentioned in those meetings by both Beth and myself. But at the time of the last meeting, because they're sort of on summer hiatus for field work, the app was in development, so we couldn't really share anything. But the idea is to now that it's done and we've had this discussion, to start, kind of bridging that gap and sending this app to them to see if they're interested. I think they would, because every time I've sort of mentioned a map to them, they've really worked to incorporate it in the hub. But I hear your comments about a proposal. The link and alignment. So Beth, is that something that maybe you could work on for that email?
Definitely,
Okay.
yeah, to kind of share some more. And I can also put in a little summary of the presentation so you can see. And again, this is something where we would be using the different we created a bunch of data files that we could actually upload into the CW Hub. So part of this would be work on that. But yeah, we can definitely break down the pieces of it a little bit. I have to say it's kind of just came up to my purview yesterday. So I'm kind of like, wow, this would be great if we could actually develop it further. The other thing that I would really love to develop in it as well is the different climate education pieces. So that's something that you don't, because it's Hope Education Art, because there's education pieces in here that are climate education. And so it gives us a little bit of funding to kind of address sort of the Ed Climate Workshop or some of the other things. And that's probably more understandable once you start playing with it. And that's where, again, we're having some time for people to actually really user test it, I think could do a lot for sort of what we're trying to do with our climate action.
Beth, we may have time to play around with this at the tail end of the meeting. I have a couple more slides that I want to get through that talk about a couple other sort of region-wide focal points that we tie into. So let me get through that. And if there's time, maybe we can bring up your map and I can stop sharing. Otherwise, we'll deal with it in the link in the email. How does that sound to folks? Okay, next slide. What is this? Okay, so this is the co-lead request. I am the only leader of this group. CWA right now, the steering committee is updating its policies and procedures document. And as part of that effort, they're asking each initiative team to have a co-lead due to experience over the past couple of years with capacity and support. As an aside, Laura in Chicago Wilderness has asked me to provide coordination support for all of the initiative teams because climate and resilience is one of a couple overarching drivers of CWA's work and efforts. So this is sort of a joke. I wrote this really late last night. It was about 12:31 in the morning, anticipating crickets and noting that no one wants to step up for this. Are there any individuals that are interested? Again, I don't need this now, but we do need a co-lead. So if anybody wants to think about this, I would really love the support, and you can email me directly. I've been in meetings like this in the past where people have said the same thing and no one raises their hands. That's what I'm fully expecting. But if anybody does want to volunteer, I would love it, and we'll go from there. So you can either raise your hand now, or we could work by email if you need some time to think about it, or talk to me about what might be involved in this effort. I don't see it as a whole lot of effort because of that overarching climate and resilience driver, but it would be nice to have a little support from somebody else to, I don't know, run some things by, brainstorm. Obviously, you've seen today some of the funding conversations could be maybe better communicated, some of those things. I don't anticipate it's a heavy lift. I wouldn't disappear once this happens and the co-lead steps in. I'd see it as sort of an advisor and supporter rather than like, a heavy lift for anybody that might be interested. So if you are interested, please let me know. Otherwise, I'll keep exploring who might fit into this role and start reaching out to individuals that I think are might be a good fit for this. That's all I'm going to say about that. And then, okay, so this is our water updates. The water team right now has no leader. As part of the overarching coordination with the goal groups, I am helping to look for a leader for this group. And we've had a lot of really good conversations about sort of water and the state of water in the region, who's doing what, where, and how, and what some of the gaps are. Um, so we held sort of this informational meeting at the end of June, and that goes to this graphic down here. I think the biggest thing that we found during the course of our conversations is that there are pretty good linked networks up north in through Wisconsin and the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, as well as the western shore of the Lower Peninsula of Michigan. Those groups regularly talk, meet, coordinate, and apply for grants together. And what we found through that conversation is that there is a big hole at the bottom of the lake that really sort of resembles CWA geography. That said, this red circle in here represents the Greater Chicago Watershed Alliance, which is being run out of Friends of the Chicago River in coordination with Adam Flickinger, who is on this meeting. So Adam, if you want to say a couple words, I'm happy to let you do that. But the context here is there is a role for CWA in the water discussion outside of Cook County and the city of Chicago for CWA to fill. And the whole idea here is that we're thinking of 319 grants and processes as the best way to get nature-based solutions into the ground at scale. It's going to be a heavy lift, but the sort of consensus of the conversations over the last year have pointed to this need and a great deal of capacity. Even though funding and plans have been made, there seems to be a disconnect with implementation. So that's part of this conversation. And we will send this PowerPoint out, this presentation out, but here's a link to where this slide came from and what we reviewed in the meeting in June in case you're interested and want to see more about it because you weren't in that meeting. And I think only a few of you were. So that's that conversation. Adam, do you want to say anything about the Greater Chicago Watershed Alliance?
I can. Yeah. So the Watershed Alliance kind of covers this, like you said, the center of that area. And it's kind of based on a process. So in the 1990s, Friends of the Chicago River with some partners founded the Upper North Branch Watershed Work Group, which is in Lake County. And it had a lot of success about kind of working across municipalities on watershed.
Hi, Keith, can I call you back? I'm in the middle of a Zoom.
It's based on that concept, and it goes kind of across all of the watersheds that contribute to the Calumet River system in Illinois, and then the Chicago River system up into Lake County. And the goal is to really, again, just like we did in Lake County, bridge across municipal boundaries and county boundaries and think about the big picture and kind of be coordinated about the investments that are made. And like you mentioned, the 319 program, that was one of the big, has been the big successes of the North Branch Watershed Work Group, which is an independent entity run out of Lake County Stormwater Management Commission that we're now a member of, and like 40 some municipalities, and they have really leveraged that 319 programs to invest, you know, tens of millions of dollars in restoration work up there. So that's kind of the idea of it.
Do you have a quarterly meeting coming up soon?
We do have a quarterly meeting coming up on July 24th, I believe.
Are those open to everybody, or are those sort of a closed select group of people that are known?
We're changing the structure right now. So in the past, it was really a steering committee meeting. So the one on the 24th is still that structure, but then going forward, we're going to have general meetings quarterly, which will be open to anyone. So happy to, if people are interested in participating, just feel free to reach out to me and we can add you to the meetings. And I think the next one, so we'll be having this convening in October called Linking Watersheds, which is more like a mini conference for a day. So that'll be in place of the quarterly meeting. So everyone's invited to that. Hope you can join us. It'll be at the Nature Museum. And then the next kind of regular quarterly meeting will be in January. So if you're interested in any of that, feel free to reach out to me.
And then Adam, what I'd love to do on the side is maybe coordinate with you so that we can get those dates onto the CWA calendar for community calendars that's open to everybody, if you're willing to do that.
For sure, yeah.
Awesome. Any questions on the water updates?
A quick question is,
Go ahead,
a quick question, if I could, is how do the other work groups fit into the administrative thing that you're putting together? There's the North Branch, but there is also Upper Des Plaines. There are things down in Kankakee. There is substantial work being done by the work groups all throughout our region. And the question becomes one, there's been a lot of activity down for Chicago and the Chicago waterways. How is the activity of those other groups being fit in?
So right now and Adam, if you have an answer, I'd love to let you or anybody, but right now what we're thinking, because we're sort of leaderless, we have a couple of options for leaders that we're in conversation with. But right now I am leading sort of these once a month, once every other month meetings to sort of talk about that and see how those groups fit in under the auspices of looking for a leader. And that's how we've been working with other groups to fit in, coordinate, and see what they're doing. It's not baked yet. It's in process very much. But we hope to get there at some point, Jim, through these conversations of looking for a leader and assessing what's going on regionally in those sort of spaces outside of Cook County and downtown Chicago. Does that make sense and answer your question?
Sure.
It's sort of a stay tuned thing.
What I gather is that it's up in the air right now. But there's a lot of folks. There's a lot of activity that is out there. Fox River, Fox Lake group as an example or case in point, and it's not necessarily widely known of all of the character of the work that they do. And the idea of linking watersheds is a great idea. That part's terrific, and that part's very good.
And Jim, please know that Friends of the River and Adam and Tessa have asked me to help plan that linking watershed. So that's part of the outreach to bring these people in to coordinate, right? And I'm trying to use that conference to sort of plug everybody together in that CWA geography at the bottom of the lake. That's my goal. It may not be reflective of Friends of the River goal. We'll see where that goes. Adam, do you have anything to add to that?
Yes, and I would just say for our area, that was really one of the reasons why we started the Watershed Alliance, which is just that center part for the Chicago and Calumet River systems. We've been spending a lot of time coordinating with some of the there's even in that area, there's lots of layers of sub-watershed groups. There's the CalSig, the Lower Des Plaines, and, all these subgroups. And then, so one of our goals is to kind of bring the work together, reduce redundancies where we can. And so one thing right now we're in discussions with is there was the Calumet Stormwater Collaborative that was focused kind of just on the Calumet subregion. And so we're working with the Metropolitan Planning Council, which ran that group, to bring it into the Watershed Alliance and sort of merge some of the working groups that have the same topic. So that's kind of the model we're using to try to connect some of this work. So, but that's just like that's for our area. We don't cover the Des Plaines River and the Fox River that you mentioned. But we have had really super interesting conversations with even some of those outside groups, with the Conservation Foundation, and the DuPage Salt Creek group is another one that's really great. So so we're trying, I guess, in summary.
And Jim, to further answer your question, in that 627 meeting, one of the things that we did was ask the room who wasn't in the room and needs to be. So that's part of sort of CWA's role as connector and convener, not necessarily solving the problems yet. We hope we will get there. But right now it's like assessing, figuring out who needs to come together so that we can work on some of the things that Adam just spoke about and you're concerned about. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and so that the group might know a little bit more widely. I have been very interested in talking with Ted. However, I have been ill for the past month or so with unique illness that involved hiccups and
We've tried
other things like that.
twice, and I was going to circle back. So,
but I'm still active, and we have I've met with US EPA Region 5 director and their staff relative to the volunteer lake monitoring program. At one point in time, the VLMP program involved over 100 lakes, pulling data together and having people do management activities on those lakes in an integrated way. We're still interested in doing that. We have active talk with other folks, outside folks, for purposes of trying to get funding to be able to resurrect that program. So.
Laura.
Oh, okay, so yeah, I just was hoping that Pat might talk further about the link that he dropped in the chat and kind of how to explore that further. And I see that Adam chimed in the same. So if I'd like to just learn a little bit more if he could. If he had...
Yeah, in 1 minute, right? Because we're done. I don't. Maybe we hold this till next month. I don't know.
Yeah, and actually it's water related, so maybe you're right. Thanks for sharing that link, Pat. And yeah. I'd like to just read up more and learn more. Yeah.
Some of them are really well attended. Some of them are at odd times. Most of them are still virtual, but we're always looking for more people to show up and share their ideas. So, yeah, check out the link. I know one's coming up. Even the CalSag one serves food, so a lot of people tend to go out to that one more. But it's just funny how some participation works sometimes. But yeah, check it out.
It's time. Thank you for a wonderful meeting. I have C4 updates that I didn't get to. I will include those in the notes. But I really appreciate everybody's time, attention, and discussion today. I hope you have a wonderful weekend and catch up on capacity and sleep and all of that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.